All right. Today we are going to start our first lesson on stats. So we're just going to do a quick review of some vocabulary words, just to refresh your memory and go over how to calculate these things in a data set. So you should have your notes with you and we're going to fill out these vocabulary words. So let's start with the mean. Okay, so if you notice at the bottom, you're going to get a list of numbers. And so we're going to take these data and we're going to calculate things. So the first thing we'll calculate is the mean. So the mean is the average of a data set. So in other words, you're going to find the sum. So you're going to find the sum and then divide by the total number of data points in the set. Okay, so you can summarize that definition if you'd like to, but that's what a mean is. So it's the average, which means we're going to find the sum, we're going to add them all together and divide by the total number of points in the data set. And we'll do an example in a moment of that. Okay, next is the median. Okay, the median, now what we have to do with our data, and I'll show you this as well in a second, is we have to line them up in order. So the median is the middle number in an ordered data set. So what that means is we'll be listing them in order from lowest to highest, and then we find what the exact middle number is. So I'll show you how to do that also in a minute. Okay, the mode. The mode, so again, it is helpful to have them listed in an order. So in the order, it is going to be the most frequent data value in a set. So meaning that frequent means that it's the most. So mode is also the most repeated, the most number of times a data point is listed. So it's the most. It has the most values of that same data point. All right. Bimodal then, because bi means two. So bimodal means that you have two modes. So it's a data set that has two modes. Okay, and I'll show you what that looks like, or you'll see what that looks like on your homework. And then the range is shows you how spread out the data is. Okay, so the range, it shows you. And what that means is that you are going to find the range by doing the maximum number and subtract it from the minimum number. So that calculates the range, is the max minus the min, which tells you how spread out the data is. And then our last one is an outlier, which we're going to deal with outliers when we come back, when I see you again. So an outlier is a number. It's a number or a value that is extreme. So an extreme value in the data set that is really high or low compared to the rest of the data in the set. Okay, so it's really far away from something else. So like, for example, if we think of this in your grades, let's say that you usually get A's and B's on all your homework assignments, which are what, like 90s or 80s, and then you don't do homework one day and you get a 0. That 0 would be an outlier because that's not something that you normally get in your life, or it's really far away from your 80 or 90. So that would be an example of an outlier. But we'll see what that looks like later in a data set. Okay, let's go on to the next slide, and we're going to try some examples now. So I'm going to do one example with you. I'm going to do this example with you, and then you are going to do numbers 2 and 3 for homework to finish up. Okay, so we're going to find the 4 things that are calculated in stats. So mean, median, mode, and range are the most common things to show information about a set of data. And then we'll talk about what these mean later in class. So what you need to start doing first is, in order to actually calculate most of these things, we need it to be in order. So that's what I like to do first is put them in order from lowest to highest. And then what I do is I cross them out as I go along. So the lowest one in here, we have two 12s. So I'm going to cross those two 12s out and then I'm going to write them here in order below this number. All right, then I have three 13s, 1, 2, 3. So then I'm going to keep writing. I have to write three of them because I have three of those in order here. Okay, and then I have 114 and 115 and then 116. And it looks like I have four 18s, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that completes my data set. So the first thing you want to do is you want to rewrite your data in order from highest to lowest. Okay, so now to calculate the mean, we need to find the sum. So the mean is the sum and then divided by the total number, which in stats, we use a big N. So N stands for the total number of data points in this set. Okay, so sum, if you want to double check me, go ahead. You're going to add those all together. When I added them all together, I got 180. So if you want to check me to make sure that I'm correct, please do so. And then if you count up the number of data points, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So N is 12, which is the number of data points in my data set. Now I'm going to divide them out. So 180 divided by 12 is going to give me 15. So that is my average, which is also called my mean. Okay, next, the median. So the median was the middle value. So what I do now, if I had two fingers that I could show you how I count these on here, but I would put a finger over the 12 and the 18 like this. And then I keep counting in. So that's one value. And then I would count in. Okay, those two get crossed off. And then I count in here. And then I count 4 in. And then I'm in here. Okay, so that means my middle two numbers. These are my middle two numbers. Because remember, it's the middle, the actual middle of the data set. So I have two numbers in the middle. So I have to figure out what is in between. What's the middle of 14 and 15? So hopefully you're thinking to yourself, okay, it's a half, right? So 14 and a half would be your median because that is the middle number of this data set. So it's interesting because it's not an actual number in here, but we actually count the middle number here, the median, as 14.5. Okay, so if you have an even number of data points, you're going to have to do like an average of the two. Or so what we can do for here is we can do 14 plus 15 and then divide it by 2. And that would give me the average or the middle halfway between my two middle numbers, 14.5. Okay, now my mode. My mode is the most frequent. So which number repeats itself the most? So 12 has 2, 13 gets repeated 3 times, 18 gets repeated 4 times. So 18 would be my mode because it's the most frequently used number or most frequently listed number. And then the last one, the range, I'm going to do, it is the max minus the min. So my maximum is here. My maximum number is 18. So I'm going to take 18 and I'm going to subtract it from the minimum, which is here, which is 12. So 18 minus 12 gives me 6. So that means my range of data points are only 6 units long from 18 to 12. All right, that is how you calculate the 4 different measures of central tendency, which is what we call these for stats. So you are going to complete numbers 2 and 3 for homework. 3 is on the back of your sheet, so make sure you look at that. And I will see you next class.